last presentation before lunch. Jin Tan is going to be joining us. She's Director of Sales Planning and Customer Logistics at REC. And this is also, I hope not to embarrass you too much, this is her debut as a speaker. So please enjoy the presentation she has and welcome her to the stage as she talks about lean and sales and operations planning. Jin.
In the morning, we had presenters presenting products that's very close to our hearts, food that every one of us know. We have also seen the last presentation on beauty products, or to me it's beauty products because I buy the hand cream. Okay, now we are, I'm from REC, we are actually dealing with renewable energy. Anybody knows REC or have seen our panels before in Singapore? Thank you. Okay, we are actually producing solar modules. Okay, so today I'm actually presenting on how do we use lean manufacturing concepts into sales and operations planning. Okay, so today my presentation will be a short introduction on REC. How do we adopt our REC business system? And then how do we use it into our sales and operations planning? REC was founded in Norway in 1996, and we currently have 2,200 employees worldwide. Sorry, how do I go back? Back one slide. Okay. Sorry, and we are amongst the world's largest producers in solar modules. Okay, we had a 7 billion Norwegian kroners turnover in 2012, and currently we are listed in the REC Oslo Stock Exchange. We are a vertically integrated company, starting from polysilicon all the way until systems installation. In Singapore, we are actually producing wafer, producing cells and producing modules in our plant in Tuas. We started in 2009. Our brand is to give electricity naturally. And how do we do that? We actually want everyone to benefit from directly from the sun. Okay, and we create value through efficient and sustainable solar products, and then we want to deliver this electricity needs to everyone worldwide. That is the mission of our company. This is a picture of our plant in Tuas. We are currently at 840 megawatts. In the logistics world, it's actually 6,000 containers a year. And we actually started to build this factory in 2009. Currently, we are already at full production. Okay, these are some of the awards that we have won in 2011 and 2012 for Innovation Award as well as a Branding Award in Europe. This slide I would like to share with everyone is about how third-party audits view REC. If you can see, it says that we are one of the top manufacturing PV companies, and then we have the best practices in the world. So the question is, how do we achieve this, and how do people perceive us when they visit our factory in Tuas? Actually, it leads me to the next point on our RBS, we call it RBS, is REC Business System Thinking. When we started the plant in 2009, we were very focused on driving this mindset, this behavior, using the REC Business System. This was very much operation-centric, and it is actually what we feel as success factors to create world-class operations. It's about understanding what is really our business case, how do we build an organization to deliver that, and then how do we build a world-class business system. This, in our mind, was our success factors. And if you look at this picture, what it's really trying to tell us is the inputs. How do we differentiate ourselves from our competitors, other solar module suppliers? Everybody will have the same raw material. Everybody will have the same inputs. We will all use man, machine, method, and material. Of course, we will have the same output. It's called solar module. It will generate electricity. But what really makes us different and differentiate us from our competitors in terms of cost and quality is really the system and the people and the behavior within the company. So we pride ourselves to have an extremely good business system where we can drive cost reduction, profitable growth, be ahead of technology, and of course develop our organization. So the effect of that is to have a very good safety record, quality modules of course, and to delivery on time as well as at competitive costs. So this in our mind was what will create world-class result. Again, this is still theory, so I will come to the practical aspect in a while. Okay, so this is a house, a view of our house. I'm sure every one of you in this room have heard of TPM, which has 7 pillars. Toyota Production System, which also has pillars, but their pillars are straight. My pillars here are triangular. So the story or the mindset we want to drive to our people is we cannot do without any one of the pillars. The foundation is extremely important. That is right at the bottom, where we want to make sure that every one of the employees have the following values, which is being responsible, enthusiastic, collaborative, and straightforward. RBS principles, I'll go through the details in the next couple of slides. Of course, we have to have a safety mindset. Okay, the next 3 things is the pillars that you see in triangular shape. If a house does not have one of the pillars, it may still stand, it will not collapse. But our house, if we don't have one of these pillars, because it's triangular shape, the house will collapse. So this is the mindset that we want to drive. And we need people, we need to make sure that we have stability and continuous improvement. And of course, like in the last presentation, with good technology, a good IT system, you can drive a very good improvement forward. On top of the house, we have perfect flow. In other words, we don't do extra things for nothing. That's how we do waste reduction, and we want to ensure that we do things first time right with 0 defects. That will lead us to the roof, which is the most important to us, and that's customer satisfaction at low cost, on time, and safety and quality is still our highest priority. So this is, in a nutshell, how we think about our REC business system. And for us, it's a culture, it's a behavior, it's a way of working. It is not something technical or mechanical that you use. And this is looking deeper into the triangles of our house, our pillars. On the left is people, on the center is stability and continuous improvement, and on the right is technology. So I'll touch a little bit on people, which is the most important asset in all companies. Okay, there is a sequential way of looking at the pillar. First thing you do when you want to look at people in your organization is you need to understand the person's role and responsibility. And with the role and responsibility and the structure you have set up in an organization, a department, you need to understand if the people you have has critical competence, has the correct competence. If you already have people there but they don't have the competence, you then have to look at their training requirements. And after everything is stabilized, we then look at how to optimize the people within that department. Okay? And after that, you look out for leaders that you can develop, and the process repeats itself. So this is a very structured way of looking at things. In all departments, we do our people analysis like this, be it on the shop floor, in the sales organization, in the finance organization, everywhere in the organization. So it's a very systematic and structured way of developing the organization. Looking towards the center triangle, this is where very much I'm going to focus on how it's applicable to sales and operations planning. 5S, if anybody is from manufacturing here, will be very familiar to, is actually 5S, a Japanese way of, in short, housekeeping, a very neat way, mainly used in a factory. But for me, 5S in sales and operations planning, in planning or in supply chain, is proper housekeeping of documentation, proper housekeeping of information, and that's how it leads us to the next level where we provide accurate facts and figures. In sales forecasting, once your figures are wrong, once your facts are wrong, it actually throws you off. So proper discipline sending in the correct data, keeping information in the correct place leads us to accurate facts and figures. After that, we stabilize the processes by understanding the 4M, which is man, machine, method, and material, be it in manufacturing or is it in the sales department. Which are the processes unstable we need to stabilize. After that, we look at leveling. Leveling in this case means for spikes that we need to solve or for issues that we need to solve, we need to level out the processes. And finally, we understand where's the problem or where's the potential for improvement, and we work on Kaizen events or continuous improvement. So this is not only applicable in production shop floor, it is also extremely applicable in the sales or supply chain environment. On the right triangle, it's actually a triangle on technology. In the factory, we use it for engineering processes. In supply chain, we use it mainly on the IT or the ERP or even Excel system, understanding what is the current capability. Is there any potential that we can work on the system? After that, if we really cannot, we need to do development. Buying new systems, we industrialize the process and we do a step change. And in the last presentation, we saw that they embarked on this system and they had a step change. Change was difficult, but the process repeats itself again and again. So in every organization, people is important. Continuous improvement and stability is also important, and we need to look out for improvements. This is what we think that's important to drive success, to meet our ultimate goal, which is, of course, to make money for the company. Okay, our 4 lean basic concepts, if you look at the 3 words on top, is actually understand, stabilize, and improve. Understanding is extremely important. If you force a salesman or sales manager to give you accurate forecasts, but if he cannot understand the numbers that he's submitting, he cannot understand what he's really doing, but he just try to give you a good forecast, and sometimes he's lucky, he gets 100%. If he's not, he won't get it. So for us, whether you get 100% or not, it's secondary. The most important thing is you need to understand and stabilize the process before you can work on improving and meeting the targets. So understanding is very much on process thinking, understanding what is the process. If you have no standards, of course, you will have no improvement because you actually don't know where is your baseline. We need to focus on what is the leading indicator, because that is really telling you how you understand the process, and not only wait till something happens, then you say, oops, we didn't meet it, what shall we do now? And lean is very much on involving people, not only the people that's working, but also leaders, because they need to understand what they want so that we can deliver what they want. And finally, the people need to trust the system. We do have cases in the beginning where people do not understand the need for REC business system. So what happened is they abuse it, and it becomes a pain, and they spend a lot more work trying to make presentation slides rather than using it as part of the culture. So it's important, again, to understand the system before using it rather than just using it without understanding. Next, I'm going through a practical way of how we actually use lean manufacturing in sales and operations planning. In lean, like I mentioned in the last couple of slides, it's very focused on flow. How do we really do execution? How do we prevent waste from happening in the shop floor, in planning, in logistics, putting our products at the wrong place at the wrong time and end up doing double distribution? Okay, and then a flow works best with stable environment. S&OP is slightly different. It's forward-looking. It's very strong on planning. It looks to the future. It is very much on how the company wants to do, what they want to deliver, how much they want to sell. Of course, it does balance demand and supply, and is used in many environments. The question I have here is, how do we then use a practice that is very much used in the factory, in the shop floor, to drive the sales and operations planning process, which is very much in planning, financial, and the sales. I'm not sure if you guys feel the same as me. I feel that sales guys, pardon me if I offend any one of you, I feel that sales guys are flamboyant. They like to present a very good picture. They like to sell because that's their competency. If a salesman is not flamboyant and cannot sell properly, you probably wouldn't want him to be your salesman. In operations, we are more straight to the point. I say we because I'm from operations background. In operations, we are more straight to the point. We are more facts-driven. We are very square-minded. 1 means 1, 2 means 2, and we cannot say, never mind, it's okay, we try this process first. Then after that, you have a missed process. So these two people are from very different background, very different competency. How do we marry them up to get the best for the company? So here I am trying to do that. That's why I was actually transferred from operations to the sales environment to do sales and operations planning. Traditionally, we have finance department, operations department, new product department, planning department, sales department, and of course you have the corporate headquarters doing the forecast, waiting to deliver results to the stock market. So every one of these departments will want to do the forecast to the best for their own department. So everything they do is about themselves, about their KPI. How do we actually connect every one of the department to achieve the overall company's goal? Often there is misalignment for the overall business case because definitely there's conflict of interest, and production cannot meet the demand plan because the demand out there is different from what the production can produce. So there is inconsistency. Sometimes the sales guys thought that we can produce less and sell less, and so on and so forth is not connected. So how do we actually connect from the time we get the raw material in till the time we deliver to the customer and get the money in our bank? So next, I will touch on one very important slide. It's extremely important to me and to the people in my company because in everything we do, we always go through this thinking process. The first and most important thing is, why do we want to do something? It's called understand your business case. Understanding your business case is also, what do you really want to achieve? How can you achieve it? Where are you at your current situation? We use A3 quite extensively in understanding our business case. Before you can do anything, you need people to do it. Either you do it yourself or you have an organization, but you need people of the right competence to do it. Next is a very 4 important points to me, and I use this very much in the sales and operations planning process that I've set up. It's actually called rules in use. It's about standardizing all activities. If everybody in the company wants to use different practices, you will never know which is the best and which is not working. So we need to understand and standardize the best practices into a standardized format. Next, we need to understand the customer-supplier connection. When we talk about customer-supplier connection, it's not only about delivering to the end customer. The person buying the thing is the customer. Customer-supplier connection is who is upstream and who is downstream, and it's also internal customers. That to us is very important because you need to know what sort of effect or impact you're causing to people around you. Nobody is perfect. There's always potential for improvement. So you need to optimize the flow by understanding your connection and your flow. If you don't understand connection, your customer or your supplier, and you start to improve, you probably can cause negative effect to the people upstream or downstream. So again, these points are interconnected. And finally, when you meet with problems, we need to be open, not defensive, and solve the problem by continuous improvement and structured problem-solving methods. Okay, so using this as the linchpin of our system, we will then look at how we set up the overall planning process. This is a very, very busy slide. Actually, if you look at the top left-hand corner, is actually the inputs where we look at customer demands, we look at forecasts, and the right bottom is delivering and invoice. The most important is invoice, where we get our money in the bank, be positive for the company. So this is a very detailed process, but what we focus here is actually inputs Inputs is in blue. Inputs will affect the process, and what's the output of each process, and how they are interconnected in terms of customer-supplier relationship. So we understand the flow. As I mentioned, we need to understand the customer. We standardize the flow, I'm sorry. So we need, this is our agreed flow. If there is a change, we will change it, and then we'll standardize the flow again across the company. Thereafter, we understand the connection to each other between production, operation, sales, supply chain, etc., and so on. We need to understand everybody's connection. And finally, we need to execute to what we say, and we track the deliverables. So this is a very high-level overview. And of course, we then go into the detail where we have a very clear business process mapping, detailing out the roles and responsibilities, the timing required by everyone. Having a very clear schedule is important so that people keep to the discipline. And finally, in operations, of course, we have setbacks. Of course, we have excursions. We do allow for that, but we need everyone to understand. We need everyone to communicate so that we can have action plan. So we have an out-of-control action plan form to communicate a failure or excursion. Other things that we also do is having a very structured meeting. Meeting is not only about setting up meeting, because meeting is about driving discipline. We have a lot of meetings that people meet and think, and why can't you think, then you meet? So we want to make sure that people are very disciplined. They deliver what they need to deliver in the meeting structure, leading up to the final quarterly finance review where we deliver the results. And on the top right-hand corner is about standardizing the sales process. Sales guys will come and tell you, do you know the market is very difficult, the customer is very difficult. Now, and in solar, we get affected by government policies. Recently in Europe, they have declared an anti-dumping duty on China modules. Fortunately, we actually benefited from it because we are not from China for now. But it could happen to us, some other things that happen. So we have a lot of factors that is affecting. Back to my word just now, understanding what really affects you in the flow is very important. So we always come back to the flow that we know. What are the factors that affects us? Price, tariffs, government policies, and so on. So each of these factors is being studied during when the guy is making a sales plan, understanding to his best knowledge based on facts and figures. So with that, we drive discipline and proper documentation so that it gives us our best known accurate facts and figures. Like one speaker mentioned just now, forecast cannot be 100% accurate because you're always hit with problem. The point is understanding what affects your accuracy. That is more important for us. So I've been through the parts of the house. Again, it's just to reiterate how important the parts of the triangle is helping us to drive our forecasting behavior. This is a focus diagram. In some companies or in some TQM, you commonly know it as CPOC. Down here we call it focus diagram. It's a little bit re-engineered. What this is trying, on the left is demand, on the right is supply. Actually, this is tracking the input to the forecast. Okay, the top orange box and the bottom green box is leading and lagging indicator. What are the controls that you need to put in place for your process? And of course, the output is your desired output or your plan. In engineering or in a certain wafering process, it is of course the material, the machine recipe and so on, but I use this into the planning and the sales process. So what this does is actually understanding the input parameters and the factors affecting the transformation of your process. And of course, it also helps us to track our leading and our lagging indicator. This actually helps to understand your customer and your supplier. After tracking, if something happens, what do? Start blaming the guy and say, it's all your fault. If not, we would have met the forecast. I think that's not the point. The point is whenever something happens as a company, we need to sit down and understand what is the root cause for the thing that has happened. This is an example of a root cause analysis that we have done when we failed in one of our region back in Q1. So we sat down together with sales, legal, finance, and everybody involved to understand what was the process that made us not meet the forecasted delivery for Q1. And we found out that actually it's on letter of credit. We are actually very stringent and strict on the requirement for letter of credit, but we did not really conduct proper training and understanding when we were out in the markets. So thereafter, after this RCA was done, we drafted a terms of sale policy, and we started training the sales guys that was involved in the affected regions. And right now, it is very clear who need to do what by when for the LC before we can say that it can be put into the forecast. So this is a very, very disciplined way. The sales guys sometimes don't like it, but from an operational perspective, it's normal in the factory behavior. Who need to do what by when? I think most manufacturing directors will be very familiar with this question. Who need to do what by when? Can you please tell me? I think this is what I often hear when I was in operations. So RCA is basically to generate this and also to re-look into the standardized activities that we already have. So since we started implementation, how did we actually do? We actually improved forecast accuracy from 68%. Of course, you can see 105, it does not mean that we overproduce. We had inventory to clear. On the right side, you can see we started off with 60 days of inventory. It was actually parked at the wrong part of the world. Our main warehouse is in Rotterdam, where because our main sales is in Europe, so some of the modules were parked there, but actually our sales was in APAC, and it was actually quite messy. So we managed to clean up that. Currently, we are actually on 1 month inventory, and this is actually quite tight in my opinion, and we no longer can do more than 100% forecast because shipment to Europe takes between 21 plus custom clearance and delivery, all that is about 25 days to be exact. So this is the results that we have achieved by practically using the operational lean manufacturing system into the sales and operations planning. Of course, there's still a lot of room for improvement in terms of systems implementation and automation and so on. That, of course, is a never-ending routine. Okay, the next thing I'd like to show is actually a visual way of tracking. Nobody likes to be highlighted. If you are marked red, you actually feel quite uncomfortable. So visual management is actually quite good for reminding people that they're actually not performing. So this was actually adopted or copied over from what we do in the production shop floor. So I actually do this in my department where they get reminded if they don't meet the lead time or the cost of delivery and sales targets. And finally, the key takeaways. Lean manufacturing is nothing mechanical. There's a lot of theory in the market, but it's how we actually successfully use it to drive behaviors within the company. It actually ensures execution rather than just being at the planning stage and missing the plan and explaining the miss. It helps to understand the connections across the departments because people normally like to it's easier to function in silo. It's easier to look at your own department. It's very difficult to work cross-department. I think this is the nature of human beings, but this system actually helps, or it forces us to do it that way. It ensures continuous improvement. It's not about blaming, it's about understanding the mistake to move on. With mistakes, you can do more improvements. And last but not least, you don't allow the same thing to happen again because that's quite dumb to have the same mistake from happening. Oh, I'm on time. Any questions? I'm done.
I'd just like to clarify, does your product, are your product built to stock or make to order?
We make to stock, but we can fulfill orders. It's confusing, right? The reason is because in solar manufacturing, we have very limited capacity, number one. Number two, you cannot order a 250 watt module and everybody orders a 250 watt module. It's not possible to produce. It's not like iPad, you just produce an iPad. For us, if we produce, it's a normal distribution. For every wafer, 5 wafers that we put into the cell line, actually 5 different efficiencies come out. This is something that we cannot control. It's all produced in the normal distribution. So we do collect customers' orders, we do understand the market, but when we produce, we cannot produce exactly to the part number or the part requirement. So there is a balancing that we need to do. We collect orders and we understand the market demand, but when we produce, we then declare these are the products that we are able to produce based on our current technical capability. So we are producing to a normal distribution that we cannot control exactly. So to answer your question, we do understand the demand, but we cannot produce 100% to that.
So your components are built to stock, but you configure to order. Okay, it's a very impressive sort of presentation and what you have achieved. I'd just like to know, from concept to implementation and maturity as described, how long does it take?
2009 January, I joined REC. And in 2009 April, a background about myself. I was actually from operations. I started in the cell factory as an operations planning manager. And I went on to wafer factory where we produce from raw silicon to manufacture wafer. We produce from raw silicon. I call it the baking cake process because we bake the ingot and after that we slice the wafers and all that. So the process took us at least 2 to 3 years for the people to accept the system and use it as part of their daily lives. In the very first initial year, people felt that it was a pain. I was from semicon, very high tech. Everything was in the computer. You just need to click one button, the report come out. When we drive lean manufacturing, it was very much a visual system. Whiteboard, operator need to use the marker to color, need to stick post-it. That was faced with a lot of resistance. But the leaders in our company, the management, was very insistent. They persevered through, and actually for this to be successful, the leaders and the management need to lead by example. So the management was constantly on the shop floor. It was, we repeat and repeat and we coach and we tell the people importance. And when we had a success factor, we actually publicize it so that we tell people, you know, you use RBS system, that's how you get the success. And with this, slowly but surely, we actually managed to convince the people. So if you ask me, all in all, it took at least 2 to 3 years to convince the entire management and people to automatically use it without being forced.
So I have a question for all of you, or several actually. And the first one is, as I look at what the RBS system put together and how you can take information in in the triangle you had in the center, accurate facts and figures. And Gartner did a study at the end of last year that showed only 10% of companies had data quality management in place, which implies that you would have accurate fact and figures if you're measuring those, right? So for the companies out there, in watching this presentation on RBS, how many of you have in the center of your S&OP process, in the center of your work, data quality measurement and management? I have Roxanne in the back said yes. Anyone else? I see some people shaking their head, but I'm not sure if that's yes or no. How about you? Huh?
Sorry, what was it?
In terms of data quality management, is data quality management, which is in the center of the triangle, part of your success also? Or is it? Do you do data quality management today? So we'd be looking at things like If you look at forecast, which was one of the things that we've heard today in terms of presentations, forecast accuracy. For forecasts to be accurate, we have multiple systems feeding into a central system, as we heard from one of the previous speakers. And he said, hey, we have the forecast, it all comes in, and we can then measure whether we are using it or delivering to the forecast correctly or not. And so then if the forecast was low, then we would have a challenge to either go and try and fix that forecast or decide to take other action. But if in fact it was a data quality issue that led the forecast to be wrong, then we'd have to take a different type of approach. And so that's what I was asking. In your center of your triangle, you had accurate facts and figures, and trying to get, I guess, from sales and also from operations, enough data to know, hey, are we doing the right activities?
I think you are right, and data quality is very important, and we do have, or rather in my department, I do have someone looking and managing and ensuring that the data is correct on the first submission. Otherwise, if you have, it's garbage in, garbage out. So maintaining data quality is extremely important.
Definitely, and it's a key part, because what we've heard today has been centered around data being available, data being trusted, data being shared, and even to what Jen shared today, using data to then try to deliver better outcomes. Because she said, hey, if we had an issue, we went ahead and then worked on solving it together. So thank you very much, Jen. Great debut, first presentation.